I was parked just off the I-285 loop behind an abandoned chevron on Flat Shoals Road, the kind of place no one had cared about even before the world fell apart. Weeds had cracked through the asphalt long ago. The sign still read $2.39 for regular. That number hadn't mattered in over a year. The van, an old '97 Dodge Ram I bought with what was left of my retirement check, had held up longer than I expected. Not pretty, not fast, not even particularly warm, but it ran, and the solar panel I rigged to the roof powered the radio and my single hot plate well enough. I didn't come here to survive a zombie outbreak. I came here because there was nowhere else to go. After my last tour, I came home to find a lawyer's envelope on my front step and another man's name on my kid's school pickup sheet. My ex took the house, moved into Buckhead with her new finance husband, and fought for full custody. I let her win. No point fighting two wars. I rented a storage unit in Marietta, sold what I could, and bought the van. Been living like that for 3 years. When the first reports came out of LA, some quarantine going wrong near a VA hospital, I was skeptical. Then the stories from Dallas, then Jackson, then Atlanta, and suddenly everything wasn't just a headline, it was survival. The day it all truly fell apart here, I was perched on the roof of the gas station, watching the Beltway through a set of cracked binoculars. Cars hadn't moved in hours. Some people were still inside them, unmoving. Others were wandering. The real kind and the infected kind were getting harder to tell apart. The early ones, the bitten ones, didn't come back right away. It took time, a fever, a shaking, and then something colder took over. No speed, no shrieking, just relentless motion. They walked with that same dragging limp. Couldn't speak, didn't need to. I started keeping the radio on more often, switched between NOAA, old police bands, even trucker chatter on CB. One night I caught a FEMA relay broadcast out of Fort Gillem. They were still trying to secure the perimeter. By morning, that signal was dead. By evening, I picked up chatter from some guardsmen near Panthersville. Talk of closing all routes out of the city. Then orders. Standing ones. Nobody leaves. I didn't try to get back in. I didn't go looking for anyone. The people who made it out did it early, before the barricades, before the checkpoints. I knew better. In war, hesitation gets you killed. In this, it got you turned. My van was hidden from the road by an overgrown embankment and 2 rusted-out sedans. I wrapped the windows in foil and black duct tape to keep the light in. Rigged a PVC pipe into a water catchment system off the station's old awning. Days were hot, nights freezing. Every few days I'd make a run, always at dawn. Less risk of seeing anyone, human or not. One morning I watched a woman crawl out of a smashed Corolla on the access road. Her legs were broken bad, pinned under the dash. She screamed for hours. No one came. I didn't either. I couldn't. The infected don't scream. That's how you know who's left. When her voice finally stopped, I waited until dark to check. She was gone. Just a smear of blood and drag marks down the road. No sign of the body. I stopped checking after that. 3 weeks in, I took apart a Walgreens near Candler Road. Not much left. Stripped shelves, some canned tuna, expired insulin, and 1 busted inhaler. In the back office, I found a calendar from 2021 and a pile of notebooks someone had kept. Inventory maybe, or just journaling. The last entry was 2 words. They're learning. I burned it. Too many people out here lose their grip and try to explain the end. Truth is, it doesn't need explanation. It just happened. I kept track of the days by etching small lines in the van's dashboard. 1 for every sunrise. 65 when the fuel depot burned in Forest Park. I could see the glow all the way from my perch, a black column rising straight into the sky. A few days later, a convoy rolled past on the ramp. 2 Humvees and a deuce and a half, loaded with crates and maybe half a dozen bodies in ponchos. Not infected, just shot. That's when I knew it wasn't just the dead I had to worry about. There were stories, rumors from the truckers passing through before it all shut down, a group of ex-cops setting up their own law down in McDonough, a biker gang controlling the roads west toward Douglasville. Some preacher near Stone Mountain convincing survivors to bring their loved ones, turned or not, for some kind of healing. I steered clear of all of it. I didn't trust anyone who smiled too much or prayed too loud. I was on the roof one morning, scanning the horizon like always, when I saw movement near the edge of the woods by the old Waffle House sign. Not shambling, not erratic, measured, careful, human. I stayed low, watched. 2 figures, one adult, one smaller, backpack on each. They walked with purpose, glancing behind often, not infected, but probably just as dangerous. They passed by without seeing the van. That night, I moved it deeper into the tree line, near a drainage culvert. Can't be too careful. Too many people mistake solitude for weakness. The prosthetic I wear on my left leg isn't the fancy carbon fiber kind. Just a steel pin, socket joint, and a rubber foot worn thin from walking on gravel. It squeaks when it's cold. I learned to oil it sparingly. A bad knee on the other leg meant I couldn't run, but I could shoot. The M1A in my van was zeroed in. I'd used it once already, from distance, on someone who tried to pry open my driver's door while I was asleep. He wasn't infected, just desperate, maybe crazed, but he kept hitting the window with a crowbar and whispering something about keys. I gave him 3 warnings. The 4th was a single shot through the side glass. I buried him by the dumpster out back, said nothing, kept moving. There was a time that would have shaken me more. Even in the army, you still had to fill out paperwork when someone died. Now the only forms were tire tracks in the dirt and shallow graves no one would ever check. I kept a notebook of names, dates, locations, not for conscience, just record keeping. Might be useful someday, if anything ever comes back. By the 74th day, the infected had grown in number. Not because they were breeding, just accumulating. The south side was drawing them in. Noise, fire, motion. It always draws them. Every few nights I'd hear something like fireworks coming from inside the perimeter, but the pattern wasn't celebratory. Controlled bursts, small arms, sometimes what sounded like a belt-fed weapon. Suppressed or distant, it meant someone was still organized, still trying to hold something. I didn't bother trying to find out who. The sky stayed grey for weeks. Ash from the refinery explosion had drifted all the way to my ridge. Everything smelled like burned plastic and old engine oil. Even the rain felt wrong. It left spots on my windshield like chemical burns. I wiped it down each night before sealing the seams of the van with more duct tape. One of the side windows still whistled faintly in crosswind. I stuffed a shredded gym towel into the crack. Kept most of the cold out. Every few days I moved camp, never far, just enough to avoid a pattern. Always within sprinting distance of the van. I kept everything modular. My gear could be packed in 90 seconds or less, stove to battery. If I couldn't carry it in one trip, I didn't need it. The prosthetic slowed me down on uneven ground, but I knew how to compensate. Weight shift, balance on descent, favor the good leg during climbs. One wrong step on a slope could tear the socket seal or worse, snap the anchor bolt. I carried a spare foot in the back just in case. It was during one of these moves that I picked up the emergency signal again. Not FEMA, not guard. Just a civilian broadcast, bouncing between bands like it was trying to avoid triangulation. The voice was male, maybe mid-30s, tired but calm. I recognized the cadence, former military or someone trained to sound like it. He was broadcasting from a ham radio on battery backup somewhere near East Point. He didn't say a name or exact location, just that he was alive and transmitting every other evening at 2100 hours. Said he had maps, water, medical supplies. Said he was looking for others like him, alone, cautious, and willing to trade. I didn't respond. Not at first, but I kept listening. His intel was good. Mentioned a rogue unit near the airport extorting fuel from refugees. Talked about a warehouse near Moreland Avenue that had been fortified and then overrun. He wasn't making this up. I'd passed both places days prior, the bodies, the scorch marks, the smell of antifreeze and cordite. He'd seen it all too. I finally answered on the 6th night. Short reply, just a call sign and timestamp, no location, no details. He acknowledged, then cut the signal. Next night he gave coordinates to a drop site, an old UPS box in front of a closed pawn shop on Boulder Crest. Said to leave any messages or trade requests there. Risky, but clever. I waited 2 more nights before going. I went at dawn, when light was thin and shadows still stretched like blades. The infected don't move fast in the cold, makes them sluggish. Their joints stiffen and the black slime that seeps from their mouths gets thicker, more viscous. You can hear them coming, a sound like old burlap dragging across tile. The UPS box had been repainted black, with a strip of reflective tape on the handle. Inside was a sealed mylar envelope. No signature, just a note. Still here. North signal towers compromised. Will move next week. No lights, no sound, no trails. I took the envelope, left nothing in return. By the time I got back to camp, the sky had cleared. First time I'd seen blue in weeks. It felt wrong, too quiet, too open. I boiled rainwater and ate a can of beans cold. The label was half melted, but it still beat what some were eating out there. I'd seen people try to cook infected meat, thought maybe the fire would kill the virus. I'd also seen what happened to them after. Doesn't take long. The next 3 days passed without signal. I scanned all bands. Nothing. Just static and the occasional automated weather loop from Alabama. On the 4th night, I picked up something. Scrambled, short bursts, broken code, then a voice. Repeat. Compromise at tower. Lost 2. Do not approach. Building is breached. Fire escape compromised. If anyone... Then silence. I waited a full hour, tried to reply. No answer. On day 80, I moved camp to a concrete drainage culvert east of the parkway. Brought the van down a service road and covered it with brush and camo netting I'd salvaged from an old sporting goods store. That's when I found the first one. She was wedged in the pipe, just below the grate. Female, mid-20s, infected but not yet bloated, still fresh. The wound was on her throat, clean bite, deep. Her mouth was open, dry, and I could see the congealed black mass under her tongue. No ID, no wallet. Just a silver necklace with a cracked charm that read Kiana. I dragged her into the ditch and set her on fire. It takes longer than you'd think. The smell is worse than anything from the war, flesh and rot and hair and old perfume. I watched until only bone remained, then scattered the ashes and moved upstream. People talk about how the infected are monsters. That's true. But not in the way they think. The real horror isn't that they kill, it's that they keep moving afterward. No pain, no memory, no hesitation, just motion. That's what makes them terrifying. You can shoot them, trap them, burn them, and if even one limb still works, it'll crawl toward you without eyes or skin. I've seen one with its entire lower half missing pull itself forward with a broken arm. It didn't know why. It just did. That sort of relentlessness stays with you. You start planning everything in escape windows. Not whether something's safe, but whether you can get out fast enough when it's not. I had 4 different routes memorized for every camp spot I rotated through. I never stayed more than 3 nights in a single place, never parked the van facing downhill, and I always kept it packed. I could be rolling in under 2 minutes from the moment my boots hit dirt. After the marks on the window, I moved out fast, didn't even wait for first light. Headed south, through side streets half swallowed by kudzu and collapsed sheds. Took the van under an overpass near a creek bed I'd used once during a flash flood season. Locals used to call it Bone Creek because it ran behind an old vet clinic and kids would find animal skeletons there in the runoff. Now it was mostly just a muddy stretch of trash and silence. I parked beneath the overpass, angled the van behind a downed billboard support and draped my netting. Then I walked the perimeter, always twice. First lap for traps, snares, tripwires, anything human. Second lap for signs of infected, broken brush, smeared fluids, the sour chemical smell that always followed them. This time I found neither, but I still didn't sleep. The rain came down hard that night, big southern rain, thick drops like falling pebbles pounding the roof like artillery shrapnel. I stayed in the dark, no light, listening to the stream push debris against the culvert walls. Around midnight, I caught a flash of something reflective on the far bank. Not eyes, not fire, just a glint. I kept the rifle aimed on that patch for over an hour. Nothing followed. Still, I didn't let the safety click back on until sunrise. At some point, you stop believing in luck. You just start believing in delay. That the bad thing isn't gone, it's just not here yet. By day 95, I started encountering more signs of organized groups. Not survivors, scavengers, small groups, maybe 3 to 5, moving through abandoned neighborhoods, tagging walls with weird symbols, carving notches into trees. Some were subtle, like someone marking safe or clear for others. But I knew how to read signs of military coordination. Some of those marks weren't messages. They were claims. Territory, paths, extraction lanes. Once, I came across an old charter school near Panthersville Road. Banners still hung on the chain-link fence, faded red and gold, with waterlogged art projects still pinned to the hallway walls. It should have been ransacked, but instead, the doors were all intact, barricaded from the inside. I counted boot prints around the side entrance. Not military issue, but still uniform in shape and spacing. No scuffing, no dragging, not infected. I didn't go in, didn't even get closer than the tree line. But the real clue came a day later, when I was setting up a fireless boil pot behind a Dollar Tree on the opposite block. That's when I heard it. Controlled fire. 3 quick bursts, spaced perfectly, followed by 2 single shots. The kind of rhythm you only hear from someone who knows what they're doing. I didn't hear screams. I didn't hear infected. Just gunfire. Then silence. I marked the time, logged the location, moved east. The road past Constitution Lakes was flooded and torn. Cracked pavement and downed signs led into a mess of debris and rust. That's where I found a flipped Suburban. All 4 tires melted down to the rims, windshield shattered, blood trailing into the marsh. Someone had spray-painted a message on the tailgate in flaking yellow. Too slow. Beneath it, 2 sets of child-sized shoes lay neatly beside a sun-bleached car seat. I didn't linger. That night, I found another message in the UPS box, same one as before. Envelope was wet but sealed. Inside, a photo and a note. The photo showed a man, early 40s, short beard, with a portable antenna rig behind him. Looked like a rooftop, possibly industrial. The note just said, Chattahoochee Yards, meet point 12 days, rooftop access, east stairwell, clean. That was the closest thing to an invitation I'd had in months, and I didn't trust it one bit. I camped 2 miles from the site, spent 3 days observing through an old telescope I'd salvaged from a pawn shop years ago. The yards were mostly rail cars, metal warehouses, and old maintenance depots. Looked like some had been swept and cleared. A few rooftop panels had reflective tape, someone signaling. At night, I saw faint glows. Not open flame. Red light. Tactical. Someone inside was using filtered lamps or headgear. Discipline, structure, not random survivors. On the 12th day, I approached at dawn. The streets were slick and black from rain. The air was heavy with sulfur and mold. I moved slow, staying low, eyes always moving. Nothing on the ground level. No infected, no signs of ambush. The east stairwell was unblocked, but something about the scene put me on edge. It was too clean. No clutter, no blood, no bodies. Just silence. I didn't go up. I walked past, circled once. Came back around 30 minutes later, still quiet. Then I saw it. A trail of dried fluid running from the 2nd floor window, hidden behind a drain pipe. Looked like water at first, but it had a slickness to it. A dark sheen. Infection runoff. I knew it well. Someone had been hit. Recently. Possibly inside. I left a note instead. Taped it to the side of the van I'd scouted with earlier. Still alive. Not safe. Will contact again. No name, no promise. Just confirmation. I moved again that night. I could feel something shifting. 2 nights later, I had my closest call yet. I was camped near a bus depot on Constitution Road, sleeping in the front seat with my hand on the pistol when the van shook. Not hard, just enough to wake me. Then again, heavier, closer. A sound like dragging gravel. Not many things make that sound at that time of night. I reached for the rearview mirror and adjusted it. That's when I saw the reflection. 4 infected. All men, 1 missing an arm. Another had a melted face, probably fire damage. They weren't attacking. Not yet. Just standing. One leaned on the hood of a wrecked Camry, mouth hanging open like it was listening. Not sniffing, not groaning, just waiting. I didn't breathe. Not because I was afraid they'd hear it. I didn't breathe because I was afraid I'd move. Even the smallest twitch could be enough. A twitch, a blink, a shadow falling wrong across the glass. They didn't lunge. They didn't pound on the van. They just stood still. I watched them for hours through the sliver of windshield I kept uncovered. At some point, one of them dropped to its knees like a puppet with cut strings. The rest followed it into the street, slow, twitchy, aimless. Eventually, the sounds of the city, the faint whistle of wind through busted gutters, a distant car alarm still screaming into the void, pulled them away. I waited another hour after that before moving. Even then, I didn't drive off. I crawled out through the back, inch by inch, with the M1A shouldered and finger ready. I swept the area, then checked the undercarriage of the van. Nothing. But I did find something new, bits of brown thread and plastic fibers stuck to a nearby branch. Someone had been there, not infected, human, watching maybe, or luring. I didn't find prints, but I knew what I was looking at. This wasn't chance. It was pressure. Someone wanted me on the move, so I moved. I kept west along the perimeter of Gresham Park, then turned north up Moorland, looping through side roads until I found the edge of a place I'd been putting off for too long, a regional distribution center. A massive wholesale warehouse that once served half the city's grocery stores. Big building, fenced perimeter, loading bays, caved-in roofs in some places. Other parts still intact. The last time I'd scoped it from a distance, it had looked too hot. Too much motion, too many shadows. But now I was running low. The last of my clean water was gone, and the canned food I'd stored had started swelling at the seams. Botulism waiting to happen. I pulled the van back into a shaded rail line about 500 yards south of the warehouse lot. From there, I hoofed it on foot, dragging my gear behind in a canvas cart. Moving like that was slow. The prosthesis had held up, but the socket liner had worn thin from heat and sweat, and I could feel bone grinding on steel with every other step. I paused behind a burned-out semi-cab and scoped the lot. Nothing moved. No moans, no pacing shadows. No distant echoes. Stillness wasn't comfort, it was a warning. I stayed low and skirted the fence until I found a breach. A cargo truck had slammed through years ago, taking out a 20-foot stretch of chain link and leaving behind a gaping access point. I slipped through, pulling the cart with one hand, rifle in the other. Inside, the place smelled like mildew and old grease. Thousands of square feet of shelving, many already stripped bare. But some deeper aisles still had sealed crates. Pallets of rice, medical gloves, plastic-wrapped boxes labeled N95 and thermal soup mix. Jackpot. I cracked one open and tasted the soup powder raw, bland, gritty, but edible. I stacked what I could carry in the cart and began my exit, heart pacing out timing in my head. 7 minutes in, 5 out. Always under 10 total. That's when I heard it. A faint knock. Then a shuffle, then another. It didn't come from behind. It came from above. I looked up into the loading dock catwalks and saw them. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Faces slack, jaws loose, shirts torn, blood-caked arms hanging over rails like meat hung to dry. They hadn't moaned, hadn't moved, just stared, or something like it. I didn't think. I ran. The cart flipped before I made it past the main aisle. Supplies flew everywhere. Rice bags, soup packets, a half box of vitamins. No time. I left it and bolted, my boots pounding the concrete in measured, desperate cadence. That was when the sound hit me. A roar, not human, not animal. It was the sound of hundreds of feet, scraping, pounding, dragging all at once. No cries, no language, just fury and hunger. I reached the main dock and tried to vault the bent gate, but my leg caught. Not my real one, the prosthetic. The old socket had torn its seal and the leg wobbled mid-jump. I hit the ground hard, shoulder first, and the bolt snapped. The prosthetic tore loose at the joint and clattered down the ramp. I saw it bounce off the pavement, land against the wheel well of a delivery van. No time to recover it. They were coming. Fast for something slow, not running. Just so many of them. No space to rest, to reset, to aim. I crawled on hands and knees, dragging myself along the pavement. Fired 2 shots into the lead group, both hits, neither kill. They didn't stop. I clawed my way into the wrecked delivery truck, slammed the door, locked it, no window, no second exit. But it was metal, thick. The first infected slammed into the outside like wet cement hitting steel. Then another, then a third, dozens, piling, surrounding, smearing the glass with black fluids and broken teeth. I lay there, breath caught, unable to move, trapped in that box of rust and rot while the horde surrounded it. No plan, no backup, just me. One knee bleeding, a shattered prosthetic somewhere outside, and a dwindling magazine. The roof. I pulled myself up using a side ladder welded to the interior. My good leg screamed, but I made it. Pried open a service hatch, kicked it twice until the lock broke, and pulled myself onto the roof. From there I saw it all. The entire lot. Hundreds of infected, some fresh, some rotting, all turning, slowly, all faces aimed up. At me. I threw everything I had. A road flare from my pack, flung far across the lot to draw them. A mirror shard to bounce light down an alley. Anything that might distract them. It bought me 30 seconds. I took that window and leapt. Off the roof, across to another van, rolled off its side and crawled under a stack of wooden pallets. A bite missed me by inches. I could feel the air change as they passed overhead. Dozens of feet, clacking nails, gurgling breath, but I stayed hidden. 20 minutes later, most had moved on. Enough for me to crawl. I made it back to the breach in the fence, dragging myself on elbows and pushing with my remaining knee. I didn't care about infection from the asphalt. I didn't care about torn skin, I just had to move. When I finally got back to the rail line, the van was still there. I pulled myself inside, sealed the doors, and passed out. I woke up half a day later, feverish, drenched, alive. The prosthetic was gone, my gear was scattered, my hands were torn up from gravel and rust, but I was breathing. That counted. I sterilized the knee as best I could, wrapped it in gauze, took 2 of the remaining antibiotics I'd saved for emergencies, ate the last protein bar from the glove compartment. Then I sat there, in the dark, thinking. Not about survival, not about food. I was thinking about how I used to sit in my old garage, back in Covington, long before the house, the wife, the war, and the ruin, sitting on a milk crate next to a radio I'd cobbled together from a field kit and stolen wires. Back then, the world made noise. Even in stillness, there was always the hum of something. A television in the other room, a car idling on the street, the scrape of tires in a driveway. Now the quiet had weight. It pressed on you, crawled into your ears and settled behind your eyes. It was worse than the screams, worse than the moans, because the quiet meant one thing. They were waiting. The infection didn't change the rules. It just rewrote the schedule. In the old world, danger came in seconds. Out here, it came in hours, days, slowly curling around you until you didn't notice how close it had gotten. I stayed parked under the rail bridge for 2 more nights, afraid to move, afraid even to light a flame. I tore up the insulation from the van floor to make padding, kept the engine off, let the battery run only for short spurts, enough to top off the radio, and that was it. I rationed the last of my water to sponge clean the wounds. Every hour I checked for redness or streaking. If the knee turned, it was over. Not from infection, just from immobility. A man without 2 good legs doesn't last long in a world that doesn't stop walking. I started practicing movement again on the 3rd day. Crutches were out of the question. I didn't have the wood or the tools, so I improvised. Took the aluminum support poles from a folding camp chair and taped them into a makeshift cane. Not stable, not safe, but enough to hobble to the door and back, then to the underpass entrance, then to the edge of the creek, each trip farther than the last. I marked my trail with bits of reflector tape, 1 for each day survived without falling. My stomach turned by the 4th day. Not hunger, rot. I knew the smell too well. Somewhere nearby, a body had burst. I followed the scent upstream, just far enough to confirm. A man, tall, maybe mid-40s, dressed in heavy denim and boots. Not military, not scavenger. Just another unlucky bastard who'd tried to walk through the world like it hadn't changed. His ribs had been torn open from the back. Organs stripped out like pulled thread. The flies were thick. The eyes were gone. I didn't search him. Instead, I limped back and got on the radio. Breaker, this is Bravo 1. Repeat, Bravo 1, requesting check-in. If you're still out there, I'm mobile compromised. Last known location, East Rail Cut near Constitution. If anyone hears this... I paused, then lowered the mic. I wasn't even sure why I said it. Habit, maybe. Somewhere inside, I still believed someone might be listening. I waited 10 minutes, then came the hiss of static, then a voice, faint, garbled, but there. Copy, Bravo 1, received, hold position, beacon inbound, repeat, beacon. Then it cut out, no call sign, no coordinates, but someone heard me. I didn't move that night. I couldn't. My knee had started to throb, not with pain but with pressure, like something under the skin pushing outward. I knew the signs. It wasn't infection, just bruising and stress. I tightened the wrap and loaded the M1A, slept with it across my chest. At 0300 hours, I heard the first drone. Small, fast, high-pitched. Civilian-grade quadcopter with a down-angled camera and thermal mount. I spotted the flicker of its LEDs between gaps in the trees. It swept once, then again, then hovered. Then it dropped something, not a weapon, not a camera, a canister. White plastic with red markings. I waited until the hum faded, then crawled out and retrieved it. Inside was a bandage pack, 3 protein bars, a sealed water pouch, and a note. "You're not alone. Stay on the move. Next drop, 2 nights, follow rail west." No name, no group, no hint of where it came from, but it was enough. I left that morning, dragging myself westward along the edge of the rail line, following the narrow service road through vine-choked fences and sun-baked parking lots. My knee screamed, but I ignored it. There was no other option. The van was too loud, too obvious. I couldn't drive it again until I had fuel. And fuel meant contact. Contact meant risk. On day 110, I reached an abandoned maintenance shed near an old freight yard. Someone had been using it, recently. The interior had cots, food wrappers, burned-out lanterns. The walls were marked with chalk, a tally it looked like. 53 hash marks. Below it, a name, Stokes. I stayed for one night, never lighting a flame, never unpacking more than what I could carry. The next day, I found the trail, not a road, a path, narrow, twisted, clearly made by boots. It ran west, along the edge of the yard, through a break in the trees and down toward what used to be the municipal junk lot. There, hidden under rusted-out city buses, I found the drop. Not a drone this time. Just a sealed ammo can, tucked inside the front wheel well of a burned-out fire truck. Inside, fuel tablets, 2 sealed pouches of dehydrated soup and a worn field guide. Army issue. The kind we used to keep in our packs during recon. No writing, no notes. Just one mark, made in ink, on the page about urban escape routes. A circle, downtown Atlanta, Civic Center. I stared at it for hours. Thought about what was down there. The high-rises, the courthouses, the old rail lines that ran beneath the streets like veins. I knew the area, knew the risks. Downtown Atlanta wasn't just dangerous because of the infected. It was the density, the verticality, dozens of places where visibility dropped to zero, multi-level parking garages, crumbling stairwells, elevator shafts open like empty graves, and the underground, a maze of storm drains, freight corridors, old maintenance tunnels that had once ferried gear and personnel for mid-century government offices and the CDC annex. Half of it was undocumented. The other half was filled with dead ends and gas pockets that could drop you in seconds, not to mention whatever had moved in over the past 100+ days. But if someone was still down there, still coordinating drops, still monitoring, then they had infrastructure. Power. Radios. Maybe even a safe zone. A real one, not just the myth every desperate survivor clung to. I didn't go right away. I spent the next 3 days prepping. The first step was fuel. I doubled back to the freight yard and found an old tanker that hadn't been fully drained. Took hours to rig a siphon from the drainage hose, then another hour filtering out rust and debris through strips of my own shirt. I lost half of it in the process, but the rest was clean enough to run. Barely. The van groaned when I started it. The left rear shock was completely shot, and one of the tires had dry rot along the rim, but I wasn't aiming for speed, just distance. I loaded what I had left. 4 sealed rations, a jerry can of treated water, 2 handguns, a folding knife, and the M1A. My ammo was down to 12 rounds total, and 3 were mismatched, bent lips, suspect powder, but I'd made worse shots with less. I spent a long moment in the driver's seat, fingers on the wheel, thinking. About the house I used to own, with the red door and the creaky porch swing that scared the hell out of me during storms. About the backyard I mowed every Sunday morning while my kids watched cartoons with cereal sticky fingers. About the woman who'd stood beside me during 2 deployments, only to vanish with a lawyer's signature and a new zip code. Then I turned the key. I reached the outskirts of downtown by dusk, running slow and quiet down the back end of Edgewood, past skeletons of shuttered restaurants and hollow apartment towers. The van coughed every quarter mile but held. The roads were mostly clear, no traffic, no barricades, just a carpet of bones and blackened rubber. I parked behind a collapsed Rite Aid on Pine Street and covered the van with a thermal blanket and a bent stop sign I'd rigged with rope. The Civic Center was 6 blocks west. I went on foot, knee still wrapped, balance still off, but I moved. The buildings leaned in like they were listening, glass shattered beneath each step. Trash blew between alleyways like whispered warnings. I kept to the middle of the road, flashlight low, only checking corners when I heard movement. Twice I passed bodies that didn't move. Once I passed one that did, but it wasn't infected. Just a man in a windbreaker with a rusted pistol clenched in his lap. He didn't blink, didn't speak, just watched me go. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. The Civic Center was half collapsed, with the front atrium caved in and moss growing along the walls like camouflage. Someone had written, "No entry, tunnels hot," in black spray paint across the main stairwell. I circled to the rear loading bay, climbed over a rusted scaffold, and found the service entrance. The gate had been welded open. Inside, it was pitch black. Dust filled the air like fog. Every breath felt like swallowing paper. I moved through the back corridors, checking every corner, every ceiling. Rats skittered through overhead vents. At one point, I passed a makeshift checkpoint. Sandbags, tarps, shell casings, and the remnants of something once organized. But it had been abandoned for months. I found the entrance to the tunnels behind a false panel in what used to be the stage prep room. A narrow stairwell dropped into darkness. I tested each step. Most held. At the bottom, the corridor widened, 2 full lanes of concrete with rusted pipes overhead and a breeze that carried the sharp sting of metal and mildew, and a light, dim, red, barely visible but pulsing. I followed it. The tunnel bent left, then right, then forked. One path flooded, the other lined with cables. I took the latter, dragging my weight against the wall until I reached a door marked Data Relay 03A. The lock had been melted, the hinges had been hammered out. Someone wanted in or out. Inside was a control room, dead screens, a toppled server rack, and in the far corner, behind a cracked plexiglass panel, a makeshift transmitter. Still powered, still blinking. Next to it, a chair, and in the chair a body, male, maybe late 30s, face gaunt, dead at least a week. No wounds, no blood, just still. In his lap was a journal. I opened it. Inside were logs, radio frequencies, timestamps, notes. Drops sent, drops failed. Contact made with 5 survivors, 3 confirmed dead, 1 vanished. 1, me, marked as high-functioning, cautious, pattern-based movement. At the bottom of the page, a final note. If you find this, I'm gone. The power won't hold. Relay what you know. Don't go further down. They nest in the vents now. I stared at it for a long time, then looked at the relay. Still powered, still transmitting. I tuned the mic, cleared my throat. This is Bravo 1, broadcasting from downtown Atlanta. If you're alive, if you're listening, there is no safe zone here, no walls, no saviors. But there's still signal, still voice, still something left. Keep moving, keep low, don't look back. I let go of the mic, and for a moment, the room felt even darker than it was. The relay's single diode blinked slowly, red to green, as if taking shallow breaths. A low hum buzzed from the base of the unit. There was still power, barely. The gauge on the wall-mounted battery read just under 11 volts. That meant the solar line feeding this place was either damaged or gone entirely. At most, I had a few more broadcasts left before the unit went cold, and I didn't know if anyone even heard me. Still, I sat in the chair next to the dead man, watching the shadows inside the plexiglass cabinet stretch and twitch with the movement of failing overhead bulbs. I thought about what he must have seen, what made him stay this deep in the ground when it all fell apart. Maybe he'd believed in something bigger, a network, a cause, or maybe it was just a good hiding spot that held out longer than the others. I didn't touch his body, I just slid the chair gently back from the console and let him rest in silence. Then I opened the battery casing and checked the backup cells. 2 of the lithium packs were bloated, leaking from the seams, and a third had already dropped below threshold. but one was stable. I rerouted the feed to extend my transmission window and switched the system over to emergency low power. The lights dimmed further, but the relay held. That's when I heard the pipes again. Above me, in the crawlspace vents that ran under the old civic center, something was moving. Slow, scratching, no rhythm, no purpose, just motion. Like something dragging itself along fiberglass insulation and concrete slabs. The man in the chair, whoever he was, had warned me about the vents. They nest in the vents now. I'd read that line in his logbook at least 5 times, and I hadn't truly understood what it meant until the second thump hit. Not loud, just wrong. Too heavy for a rat, too slow for a person, but too deliberate to be debris. I pulled the M1A closer and back toward the hall, staying low, careful not to brush any loose metal. I followed the same path I'd come in from, the bent corridor, the fuse box room, the narrow descent through exposed tile and failed drywall. Every footfall echoed like thunder. Every breath drew dust so thick it coated the inside of my throat. And then I saw it. The grate ahead, one I hadn't noticed on the way in, was slightly ajar, not from age or force, but from something that had pushed it open. From the inside, I froze, waited. Behind it, something shifted. At first I thought it was a face, pale, glazed over, mouth ajar. But it wasn't looking at me, it wasn't seeing, just existing. Motionless, until a hand gripped the edge of the metal frame. Its fingers were bloodless and cracked, bones poking through the knuckles like snapped wires. I backed up slowly, carefully. The tunnel behind me opened toward a service stairwell with a rusted fire exit. My goal was to reach the street. I could move again. I'd done it before. But that hand wasn't alone. 2 more shapes appeared behind it. Shoulders, cloaked in rags and dust, brushed the vent edges. One dropped to its knees, pulling itself through, chin dragging on the metal lip like a puppet with strings cut. No noise, no growl, just motion. They were crawling. I turned and moved fast as I could, weight on the cane, rifle ready. Didn't shoot, didn't speak, just moved. The corridor narrowed. Lights flickered. The stairwell opened ahead like a mouth. I reached it just as the first fingers gripped the frame behind me. I didn't look back. Not this time. Up the stairs, 1 level, then 2. At the top, a door that had been bent inward at the hinge. I kicked it. Nothing. Again. It gave just enough to wedge myself through. I emerged into the back of the Civic Center's derelict orchestra pit, the ceiling half collapsed, moonlight cutting through broken beams like prison bars. I limped past rows of dust-choked seats and onto the main floor, where puddles of rainwater glistened like oil. There were more now, standing, silent, at the edge of the hall, not rushing, just waiting. They knew the sound, my sound. I raised the rifle and fired once, clean through the frontmost one's skull. It dropped without protest. The others didn't flinch, didn't respond. I didn't waste another bullet. I made it out through a side exit I hadn't seen before, probably a maintenance corridor. The van was 2 blocks north, hidden under steel and shade. I kept moving, half running, half dragging the weight of my leg, soaked in filth and sweat. I passed the body in the windbreaker again. This time he looked at me. He didn't move, just whispered something under his breath. I couldn't make it out, didn't stop to ask. I reached the van and yanked the side door open, slid in, slammed it shut, and pulled the lock. I sat there for what felt like hours. Outside, something scratched against the metal siding once, then nothing. I waited 3 more days before leaving downtown, spent one of them fixing the van's coolant line using a bent hanger and a strip of heat tape I'd salvaged from the Civic Center's relay room. I didn't go back down. I knew better, but I wired the radio to the van's own battery and switched it to broadcast once every 12 hours. Just a loop. This is Bravo 1, no safe zone, but signal's still live, we're still here, keep moving. Then I turned west. Not because I knew what was there, but because I'd heard something else in the relay logs, a name scratched into the side of the unit. Silo 12. No address, no map, but a direction. West. That was enough. That's all we ever have anymore. Directions without destinations, ghost stories wearing numbers. I left just before dawn, packing only what I could carry and what I trusted to kill. The van rattled like it was dying, and I knew it wouldn't survive another return trip. But neither would I. Not after what Atlanta took from me. I was down to 6 rifle rounds, 1 half mag for the Glock, and a serrated boot knife with a chipped tip. My left knee had turned to concrete under the bandages, useless for running, barely tolerable for walking. I still moved, slow. Leaning on a bent steel rod, I'd filed into a cane. I crossed through Chattahoochee Hills on day 132, a no-man's land of burned trailers, splintered water towers, and hollowed-out neighborhoods that used to hum with backyard dogs and children's bikes. Now it was just dirt and wind and silence that followed you too long. I took shelter in the shell of a church that night. Pews overturned, pulpit smashed, stained glass warped by heat. Someone had tried to hole up here months ago. Their remains were still against the far wall. Torn clothes, blackened bones, claw marks across the floor like they'd tried to crawl away after it happened. I didn't pray. I haven't in years. But I kept one hand on the rifle the entire night, pointed toward the door. I didn't sleep, just waited. By midday I found it, an unmarked path cut through a pine grove, lined with old plastic ribbons and rusted nails hammered into the trunks. Markers maybe, or warnings. I followed it anyway. The air changed as I moved west, grew heavier, quieter, even the flies were gone. That's when I saw them. 7 men standing in a loose crescent along the trail, shoulders square, weapons ready. No warning, no demands. They'd been waiting. They weren't infected. Worse, they were scavengers, killers, survivors with nothing left to lose and no reason left to lie. One of them stepped forward, a tall one, dark beard, leather coat spotted with dried blood and duct tape. He didn't raise his weapon. He didn't need to. "Drop the rifle," he said, flat, cold, like he'd said it 100 times before. I didn't answer. I just looked at the others. Shotguns, machetes. A 22 that looked older than me, and one girl, barely 20, holding a knife too big for her hand. Her eyes weren't dead. Not yet. But they would be soon if she kept their company. I knew I wasn't getting past them talking, so I shot the tall one through the throat. He fell without a sound. That was the only mercy that happened that day. The second one screamed as he raised his shotgun. I dropped low, squeezed 2 rounds. One missed, the other caught him in the ribs. He spun and fell, howling, still alive. The others moved fast, too fast. The third rushed me with a tire iron. I took the hit across the shoulder, rolled into the brush, and fired upward, caught him in the chin. He collapsed, head split like a dropped melon. The fourth grabbed my arm and drove a blade into my side, 3 inches deep, low, just under the ribs. I shot him in the stomach, twice. He kept standing. Blood poured down his legs. He was still swinging when the 5th tackled me from behind. We hit the ground hard. I lost the rifle. The world turned to fists and gravel. I bit his ear, spat blood in his face. He roared and drove his thumbs into my eyes. I reached for my sidearm, found it under me, fired once through his neck. He slumped forward, his blood soaked through my coat. The 6th one ran. I didn't chase. My lungs were burning, my side wet and burning with fire. Then I saw the girl. She hadn't moved. She stood frozen where she'd been, knife lowered, staring at the mess I'd made. The noise of it all hadn't brought infected, not yet. But the smell would. The blood, the heat, the screaming. I tried to stand. My leg gave out. I leveled the pistol at her. She didn't move, didn't blink, just stared like she was trying to see through me. "I didn't want this," she whispered. My hand shook. I could barely keep the sight steady. I didn't ask. She dropped the knife, not out of surrender, just done, hollow. "Then shoot me," she said. I didn't, couldn't, I don't know why. I turned away and crawled back to my rifle. My hands were slick with blood that wasn't all mine. I reloaded the last 2 rounds from my coat. My vision was tunneling. I pressed a gauze pad into the wound at my side and tried to breathe. She came closer, not too close, just enough to speak. "They weren't my people," she said. "They found me last week. I didn't know what else to do. I thought they'd protect me. But they didn't. And I know where they were going. Silo 12. They talked about it. Said there was fuel, batteries, maybe even a working comm station." I looked at her, eyes dull. "And what else?" "Nothing good," she said. Whatever was there, it wasn't a sanctuary, they just wanted the gear. I didn't answer, just closed my eyes for a second and saw all of it again. Atlanta burning, the horde crawling over the van, the woman pinned under her car near Decatur, screaming for someone who never came. I stood, barely. "Let's go then," I said. She hesitated. "You don't have to bring me." "I'm not," I said. "I'm bringing the rifle. You just happen to be walking behind it." We moved west, slow, no words, just the crunch of pine needles under blood-soaked boots. 2 miles later, we found it. Silo 12 wasn't a military base, not a fallout shelter, not even a comms relay. It was a bunker, old, concrete, buried under a mound of red clay and vines. The entrance was sealed with rusted steel and chained like a tomb. Someone had carved a symbol into the door, a circle with a single vertical slash. I knew that mark. I'd seen it on corpses, on walls, on ammo boxes looted by the worst kinds of men. It wasn't a safe zone, it was a feeding ground. I didn't go in. I gave the girl the van keys, pointed east. "Don't stop moving, don't stay anywhere more than 2 nights, never build a fire bigger than your breath, and if you hear anyone talking after dark, don't answer." She nodded, lips parted like she was about to say something, but the words never came. I didn't wait for them. I turned and started toward the bunker. No plan, no promise, just the long trail behind me and nothing left ahead except silence. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more unsettling creepypastas. Your support keeps my channel alive. Until next time, stay quiet, stay vigilant, and trust nothing, not even the silence.